Time is supposed to be steady, unchanging. A second is a second. An hour is an hour. But what if, just once, time slipped? What if something old and patient, something waiting in the spaces we don't notice, took that time for itself? I never believed in ghosts, monsters, or anything supernatural. I believed in logic, in reason, in the things we could explain. But on one night, one ordinary, forgettable night, I lost an hour of my life. And something else found me. It was a Sunday night. The kind that drags with the weight of the workweek ahead. I was driving home from my sister's house, a route I knew by heart. The dashboard clock read 11:06 p.m. The streets were empty. The sky clouded over. I wasn't tired, but I felt off. A strange pressure behind my eyes, like the beginning of a migraine. And then the streetlights blinked out. Not all at once. They went dark one by one, in rapid succession, as if something was rushing past, snuffing them out. A second later, the road disappeared. I didn't mean I veered off course. I didn't mean I got lost. I mean one moment I was driving down a street I had driven 100 times before, and the next, I was somewhere else. The dashboard clock now read 12:06 a.m. An hour had passed in a blink. The road ahead was narrow and cracked, lined by towering trees that loomed too close. Their branches curled over the road like skeletal fingers, blocking out the moonlight. I swallowed hard. My heart pounding. My first instinct was to check my phone. No service. The map app refused to load. My GPS dot spun in place like it didn't know where I was. I shifted the car into reverse. The tires crunched over loose gravel as I slowly backed up. My rearview mirror showed nothing but blackness, not the road behind me, not the distant glow of city lights. Just an abyss. And then I saw them. At first, I thought they were shadows. Tricks of the night. But then the shadows moved. Tall, thin figures stood between the trees, their bodies too elongated. Their heads tilted at unnatural angles. They didn't move. Not at first. Then, all at once, they took a step forward. I slammed my foot on the gas. The car shot forward. Tires skidding against the gravel. My headlights cut through the thick darkness, but the road stretched endlessly ahead. No turns, no intersections. I dared a glance at the rearview mirror. The figures were closer. Not running. Not lunging. Just standing there, but somehow keeping pace. I blinked. And they were even closer. A sound filled the car, low, wet, clicking noises. Like bones snapping in reverse. It didn't come from the radio. It didn't come from outside. It came from behind me. My breath hitched. My skin crawled. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew. But I did. And in the dim glow of the dashboard, I saw something sitting in my back seat. Something that hadn't been there before. It wasn't human. It was shaped like a person, but its limbs were too long. Its skin too pale. Its face was all wrong, stretched and waxy, like it had been pulled too tight over its skull. And its eyes. Two black pits, bottomless and empty, locked onto mine in the mirror. Then it smiled. A slow, deliberate, unnatural smile that split its face too wide. The clicking sound grew louder. I didn't think. I reacted. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded. My body lurched forward, the seatbelt biting into my chest. And in the mirror, I saw the thing in the back seat, grin wider. Then it vanished. I gasped for air. My hands were trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. I looked at the clock. 11:07 p.m. 1 minute after I had first noticed the time. I was back. The streetlights were on. The road was normal again. My phone buzzed with a message from my sister. "You okay? You left an hour ago, but your car's still in the driveway." A cold shiver ran down my spine. I was home. But something was wrong. I felt it. Like something had followed me back. I stepped into my apartment, locking the door behind me. My breath still felt shaky. My mind struggling to make sense of what had happened. And then I saw it. My bathroom door was slightly ajar. The light was on. I stepped forward, my stomach churning. And then I saw the mirror. At first, my reflection looked normal. My own tired, pale face staring back at me. Then I blinked. And my reflection didn't. A cold, sharp terror filled my chest. My reflection tilted its head, not much, just enough to make my skin crawl. Then, in a voice that sounded like mine but wasn't, it whispered. "You left the door open." I stumbled back. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. Then the mirror rippled, like water breaking. And something stepped through. When I woke up, I was in my car. Parked in my sister's driveway. The clock on the dashboard read 11:06 p.m. I gasped, gripping the wheel. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "Hey, you okay? You just sat in the car for a while." I turned, slowly. To look at the back seat. Empty. No scratches. No shadows. No thing sitting there, grinning. It was like none of it had happened. But deep in my gut, I knew. Something had come back with me. And it was still watching. I forced myself to breathe. To act normal. I stepped inside my apartment, locking the door. The bathroom light was off. The mirror was clean. But on the glass, barely visible, written in something too dark to be dust, were 3 words. "Don't look back." I should have listened. Because that night, as I lay in bed, I heard something whisper from the dark corner of my room. Not outside. Not in the hallway. Inside my room. And it was my voice. Smiling. Waiting. Sleep didn't come that night. Even with every light on, I lay awake, heart pounding, the words on the mirror "don't look back" burned into my mind. But something else gnawed at me. A whispering thought, an unfinished puzzle. The thing in my back seat, the reflection that wasn't mine, it hadn't just followed me. It had been waiting. And it had called me by name. I sat up in bed, sweat cold on my skin. I replayed that moment in the mirror, the voice that sounded like mine but wasn't. "You left the door open." Not a door. The door. What door? I pulled out my laptop. Hands trembling as I typed into the search bar. Lost time phenomenon, missing hour experiences, paranormal road encounters. Thousands of results. Most were nonsense, alien abduction theories. Urban legends, sleep paralysis stories. But one stood out. A forum post. Old. Nearly unreadable, buried under broken links and archived pages. The title chilled my blood. "Do not drive alone at 11:06 p.m., IT will find you." The post was written in 2013 by a user named HoloSleeper. It described the exact same experience I had. Driving at 11:06 p.m. Streetlights blinking out. Losing exactly 1 hour in an instant. The figures in the trees. The thing in the back seat. The wrong reflection in the mirror. And then, one detail that I hadn't told anyone. It speaks your name. It knows you. It has always known you. I shivered, my mouth dry. There was more. If you're reading this, you left the door open. It's watching you now. It doesn't want you to tell anyone. It wants you to doubt yourself. That's how it wins. I stopped breathing. The next line made my skin crawl. If you see its name, you're already too late. I hesitated, then scrolled down. And then I saw it. A name. Nihilum. My screen glitched. Just for a second. The text distorted, my laptop fan roared to life. Then. The lights flickered. A whisper. Inside my room, too close to my ear. My voice. You shouldn't have looked. I slammed the laptop shut. I was not alone. I forced myself to move, to grab my keys. I had to leave. Had to get out. But as I reached for the door handle. A knock. Not a normal knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Coming from inside my closet. The air turned thick, pressing against my skin. I felt the same wrongness as I had on the road. A pressure, like something ancient was standing just beyond my sight, waiting for me to acknowledge it. Don't look. Don't look. A whisper from the closet. You left the door open. I ran. I don't even remember grabbing my shoes. I just ran, sprinting out of my apartment and into the street, gasping for breath. The night air was cold, but my skin was burning. I turned to look at my window. And I saw myself standing there. Smiling. I didn't go back inside. Instead, I drove. I had no destination. Just the desperate need to get away. After hours of aimless driving, I stopped in an all-night diner. My hands were still shaking when I pulled out my laptop. The forum post was gone. Deleted. Like it had never existed. But I wasn't giving up. I searched for Hollow Sleeper. Nothing. No accounts, no posts, no traces of whoever they were. Then, something caught my eye, a mention in an old, obscure Reddit thread. Someone claimed that Hollow Sleeper had been real. That they had documented the phenomenon in a journal before they disappeared. And that the journal was last seen at a university library. One state over. I had no plan. No logic. No reason to believe chasing this lead would help me. But I had to know. So I drove. The university library was old, quiet. I didn't have permission to be there, but after hours of searching, I found it. A battered, leather-bound book buried in the archives. The first page simply read. If you're reading this, IT knows. My stomach dropped. The journal was filled with accounts of people experiencing the vanishing hour. All of them lost exactly 1 hour at 11:06 p.m. All of them saw the figures in the trees. All of them encountered a reflection that wasn't theirs. And all of them eventually disappeared. One passage stood out. Nihilum is not a ghost. Not a demon. It is something worse. A thing that lives between seconds. A thing that has always been with us. It does not take time. It takes you. A shiver ran down my spine. I turned the next page. A list of names. My blood ran cold. Because at the bottom of the list was mine. Written in handwriting that wasn't mine. I ran. Out of the library, out into the night. My mind screamed for an answer, but there was only one truth. Nihilum wasn't something I had stumbled upon. It had always been waiting. The missing hour. The vanishing hour. It wasn't lost time. It was an invitation. A test. And I had failed. Because I had looked back. Because I had seen its name. Because I had let it in. My phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. It's too late now. You opened the door. My breath stopped. The streetlights flickered. And then. The world blinked out. I woke up in my apartment. The clock read 11:06 p.m. Like nothing had happened. Like the last few days had been a dream. But I knew better. Because in the mirror, my reflection wasn't smiling anymore. It was watching. Waiting. For someone else to drive at the wrong time. For someone else to lose an hour. Because that's how Nihilism spreads. It waits. It whispers. And once you see it, it never lets you go.